Hi guys, thank you for that. Welcome back. Just to remind everyone that we are live on YouTube and the camera will be facing us. And if you do wish to be heard, please make sure you turn your microphones on. Thank you for bearing with us while we took that brief adjournment. And we'll go to agenda item 5, I believe. No, agenda item 6, and we will ask if the applicant and licence holder. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Steve, sorry.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. You've all had the report and are familiar with the salient points of the premises licence application for Prince of Wales Sahara City. May I take this opportunity to provide a little verbal summary of the application and assist the subcommittee to determine the application that's in front of them. The councillors and all interested parties are also familiar with the regulatory problems that this venue's had previously. So I'm not going to elaborate any further on that. The responsible authorities will elaborate more on the standards of management and what they expect from the applicant to uphold the licensing objectives. There's been 2 ward councillors have made representation based on the residents in their wards having concerns over this licence being issued. There's also been 1 resident who's chosen to make a representation on their own, and the premises want to operate late into the evenings, and these are a concern to that resident. This is similar to what was in place before when the premises had previously held a licence, where there would be a sale for alcohol, late night refreshment, live music, recorded music, performance of dance, and as I said, this is identical to what was in place at the premises previously. Rightly, the concerns have been raised by those interested parties. It is fair within the Licensing Act 2003 to hold the hearing to determine this application based on the representations received and to ensure that the licence holder and DPS alongside the staff at the premises can uphold the 4 licensing objectives. The application was made and advertised in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003. However, it's for the licensing subcommittee to judge the application on its merits. The licensing subcommittee are minded to take into account all of the submissions, both verbal and in writing, in assisting in making sure the application is determined in the correct way. That's my submissions.
Thank you, Steve. Councillors, do we have any questions at this time? No. Okay, can we move on to the applicant and licence holder or their representatives?
Hoping this works, Chair. I might just move it across so I can face you properly. Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Jeremy Phillips of King's Council, and I'm pleased to represent the applicants this afternoon in this case. Just seated to my left is Mr. Mohammed Hassan, and he is the proposed DPS of the premises, and then just beyond him is Mr. Sheikh Ahmed, and he is the director of the company which is proposing to take a lease of the property. Chair, if I can just paint a very broad and general picture of the application as I see it before your committee, and then maybe invite these 2 gentlemen to speak, and possibly 1 or 2 other members of the public who are sitting in the gallery there in support of the application. But broadly, Chair, I would say in the widest possible terms, I understand entirely the reason for the objections that have been made, both from the responsible authorities and I think some of your fellow councillors and a member of the public, based on the historical use of the premises, which we accept and I understand was certainly not in accordance with the Act, was certainly in breach of a number of provisions, and obviously there's no question at all that the subcommittee on behalf of the authority was right in revoking the licence. No question of that at all. This application is put before you on the basis that it is entirely independent in every way of that historic operation. Essentially, Mr. Ahmed, through his newly formed company, is going to be taking an assignment of the lease, or taking a lease of the property. I don't know whether it's an assignment of the lease or simply a new lease of the property, from the previous owner, Mr. Abu Zaid, who was in control of it, who still owns the freehold, and who was in control of it at the time that the license was revoked. Mr. Ahmed is by occupation an accountant with a very full and busy practice. He mentions in his statement he has some 600 active clients, so he's a very fully operational accountancy practice. However, because he's kept the accounts of the business for some years, he's very familiar with it, and sees it, frankly, as an excellent business opportunity, because his accountancy practice is only, I think, half a mile or thereabouts away, so he's a frequent visitor of the premises, and he feels that properly controlled and managed and staffed and resourced, it is an excellent investment, but it's also a very valuable resource for the local community, which is why it's been so well used, even in recent months, without any license at all. The core of the business and the essence of the business is the food operation. And if, hopefully, the license were to be granted by the subcommittee, even in that event, the food business will be the majority of the business. So it will be majority dry business. But obviously, these days, going to any kind of restaurant, people hope and expect to be able to buy beers and wines and so forth with their meal, subject to the proper controls. And that certainly is Mr. Ahmed's hope that will be allowed to happen. Within the business, he proposed to employ Mr. Hassan, who is seated just to my left. Fortunately, in many ways, the history of the premises is not completely new to Mr. Hassan. He is familiar with what happened under the previous ownership of Mr. Abu Zaid, because he was working as a part-time waiter when he was studying for a business management degree as a student. So he was working some 30 hours a week or thereabouts in that business. And he's able to say what was wrong with it, what was very wrong with it in many respects, but that under his proposed full-time management, now as a professional restaurant manager, what would be done differently. And that is fundamentally everything. But he can go into that detail. In addition to that, I understand there's a representative, I think, from the security company who we propose to employ, who would address some of the admissions and control issues within the premises. And I think there's a number of local residents, I mean, there's a significant number of people here who are supportive of the application. So it will be, well, I certainly hope the committee will find, it's actually an excellent application with every merit. But obviously we understand completely that we need to satisfy you as members of the subcommittee of the merits of that, of the fact that there will be no repetition at all of the historic and undoubted problems that occurred at the premises, and we need to satisfy Mr. Farrer as the on behalf of the licensing authority, and also PC Brown, because again they quite properly raised their concerns. There is also, in addition to that, an objection by the environmental health officer. We think that we can address all of those issues as well. And so, as I say, at the end of the day, we hope that we'll be entirely satisfied. So, Chair, with that very brief introduction, I wonder if I could ask Mr. Ahmed if I could just lead him briefly through his statement, just to address some of the obvious issues that might arise.
I just want to stop you there. Just want to see, have the committee members got any questions at this time? Because that was quite a big statement. So, or we can... Okay, if you want to carry on. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, firstly, Mr. Ahmed, I don't know if members of the committee have seen Mr. Ahmed's statement. It's just a two-page statement which briefly gives an overview. So I'll only just touch on the core issues of it. Firstly, Mr. Ahmed, you've heard the situation as I've outlined it to the committee. Have I got that right? Is there anything that I've said that's wrong or misleading or needs to be corrected at this stage?
No, everything is correct here so far.
Thank you very much. I've outlined proposal that you should take a lease. Can I just ask you this? In relation to that proposal, how have you funded your idea that you'll take a lease of the property, I think for some 7 years? What's been the arrangement in relation to that?
72K will be the rental of the property, and I am in the process of remortgaging one of my property to raise funds to cover the working capital of this business.
So you say £72,000 rental, that's per annum?
Yeah.
And over what period are you proposing to take
7 years of lease.
7 years of lease at £72,000. Thank you. Will how long have you known Mr. Abu Zaid as a client of your accountancy practice?
Probably last 15 years.
Okay. What is his position as regards running any business or working and so forth
No, he will
to
be
the future?
purely just landlord of the business, that's it. And even I'm planning to take over the freehold maybe in some future time, because he's retiring in June 2023, and he might he will be selling the business as well. So my intention is to start with the leaseholder and eventually become the freeholder of the property.
Thank you. And just in terms of his kind of working ability, is he planning to work in other respects, or is it when you say he's retiring, is that complete retirement?
He's completely retiring and relying on the rental income. He got a couple of more properties, and his health is not that great as well. So he got some serious health issues.
Thank you.
So I don't think he will be doing any other business in future.
Thank you. You're aware, I think, that there were clearly problems when he closed the business to such an extent that the license was revoked. Would you be happy if the subcommittee and the responsible authorities, when we're comfortable with that, for there to be condition on any license that might be granted that Mr. Abu Zaid would have no involvement whatsoever in any aspect of the operation of the business or the management of the business or the ownership of the business?
Yes, I will be quite happy if the licensing subcommittee want to put any conditions on the management or on the operation of the business.
I think the only caveat to that, if I can lead you to that, is that at the moment, in the short term, it's proposed he would be a landlord, so you couldn't legally exclude his entitlement under the lease to check whether you've been fulfilling your repairing obligations or something like that.
Obviously, I can't stop him being a landlord to enter into the property, or he can come as a customer as well.
Yes.
To have some food, dinner. But categorically, I can say he will not be involved in any decision making, any management, anything towards the running of the business.
Thank you. All right. Just moving on swiftly then. In terms of operational management, obviously you have your accountancy business. I think it's your proposal that you employ, and I think you have already employed to date, Mr. Hassan, just sitting to my left, as the manager of the business day to day.
Yes. My office is not far away from the premises. It's within, I think, half a mile. And I used to do the accounts for lots of restaurant businesses, so I know how to run the business properly in a professional way. And Mr. Hassan will be helping in the managing of the business.
I think Mr. Hassan has a business management degree, and he also is the holder of a personal license.
Yes, he holds a personal license, and he also has a number of years of experience in running the restaurant businesses.
Yes.
At a senior level.
Thank you. All right. I think Mr. Hassan can deal with other operational issues. Yes. I will ask Mr. Hassan to give evidence in a moment, but is there anything this stage that you would want to say to the committee as the owner of the business and the holder of the lease in support of the application, or are you happy to transfer to Mr. Hassan? Thank you. Okay, well, I'll just pause there. And again, Chair, on the same basis, I don't know if you or your colleagues might have any questions of Mr. Ahmed.
Do you have any questions at the moment? I do. So I will open with a question. So I believe it is Mr. Abazed who was the previous landlord. Sorry, yeah. So he's going to have no impact on your business at all? No.
And categorically, he won't happen.
So, but he's still going to be the licensee for the HMO above?
No, I'm taking over the whole premises.
So when will the HMO license change? Because I believe he's still licensed at the moment.
As soon as we got the license, I'm going to take over this.
So that could be a number of months that he could still gain access.
No, he will not be involved. The upstairs, just the staff will be living. Mr. Abuzir will not be living there.
So, but he will still have the license for the HMO, yeah?
Yeah, I'm
just
going
to
to
confirm.
transfer it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I've got nothing at the moment. If you'd like to carry on.
Yes, if I could just clarify that, though, Chair, I think you were suggesting Mr. Abuzir would hold the HMO licence for the premises above. What is the position on the property above? Apparently, it has been registered with the council as a house in multiple occupation. Does he receive the rents for that area?
As far as I'm aware, the staff is living upstairs and no rent has been paid. Sorry,
your staff?
No. Yeah, the restaurant staff.
So will Mr. Abuzir have any interest, any financial interest in the property above? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so one moment, Councillor Smallwood.
Thank you. So just to be very clear, that there could be an interregnum period where Mr. Abuzir has the HMO while you're waiting to transfer, where there is potentially, not prejudging the decision today, but there potentially, if a licence is to be granted, there could be an interregnum where he still has the HMO, but you have the licence.
How long will it take to get the transfer of the license?
Sorry, we're talking about two different licences here.
Yeah.
Premises licence for the alcohol and music and so forth downstairs, but upstairs there is apparently a licence for it to be occupied by more than, I forget the number, maybe three or four people. It's that kind of number.
But they are not paying rent. They are the staff. Do they need the license for the staff?
We just need to clarify for the purpose of this committee, so that there's no confusion in the license. What is, again, as an accountant, I'm sure you understand these things. Is Mr. Abuzir receiving rent from the people upstairs at the moment?
No, there is no rent because the staff is living there, so I will not be charging any rent for that.
Staff are living there?
Staff will be living there, yeah. The staff who are
and these are your staff?
It will be my staff, yes.
So they're not paying any rent to Mr. Abuzir?
Yeah.
But he may still hold, just to clarify this, he may still hold a licence, an HMO licence for the upstairs, but he's not employing the staff, he's not receiving any rent. No. And is that the term of your legal agreement with him?
Yeah, because I have categorically told him that I'm taking over the whole premises, including upstairs.
Right. Okay, Councillor Smallwood, do you have a supplementary?
Not at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Again, if I can then move to Mr. Hassan. Mr. Hassan, I think you, it's right, previously worked at the property as a part-time waiter. Can you just tell the subcommittee the circumstance in which you were working at the property historically under Mr. Abuzir?
Yes, I was previously employed for Mr. Abuzir working under AM Sahara City. I was just primarily a waiter, taking orders, running drinks. That was about it. I had no involvement in management, no involvement in any of the due diligence or any of this case. And I mean, it shows for itself that the previous management, in terms of the hygiene, they only achieved 3 stars because it was poorly managed. There was no due diligence in place. There's no paperwork in place. And now under my management, we were able to achieve 5 stars hygiene, and we were able to keep record of our training, and it's well more maintained in terms of management.
Could I suggest it might be helpful if you put your machine over here, then you can committee. Thank you. I think your contract has been included in the pack of papers provided to the committee. Is it right? I think that showed you were employed as a waiter on something like 30 hours a week.
Yeah, so I was a part-time student in Roehampton University, undertaking a business management course, and I was working only part-time, about 20 to 30 hours. So.
Thank you. And I think it's right that employment ended in May 2021.
Yeah, that's correct.
And why did you stop? Why did you end your employment at that time?
It was too stressful of a job. It was, like I mentioned, poorly managed, and there was a lot of problems. It was a problematic place, and I couldn't deal with that while studying.
Did you subsequently take up any other part-time work while you were completing your business management degree?
Yeah, so I started working in Flesh and Buns in Oxford for Strovia, and as soon as I finished my degree, I was offered a restaurant manager role there, where they own about 28 restaurants in central London.
And what kind of business were you responsible for during that time?
So it was a Japanese izakaya, more of a Japanese tradition cuisine, and we had about 400 covers in the premises, where I was supervising training staff in terms of refusal of serving alcohol, in terms of when to stop serving, and how to challenge 25.
Thank you. Just in terms of the systems, the business was operating under where Mr. Abu Zaid had it, and then if you could compare that with the proposed system that you would operate under Mr. Ahmed's ownership, can you just give the committee a feeling for the comparison of the two, please?
Yes, certainly. To be honest, when I was working as a part-time waiter, there was no management. I started working. I didn't receive any training. I didn't receive anything. I was just given a pen and a pad, told to take an order, put it through the till, and that was it. Now that we want to take over and manage it accordingly, we would first thing first is to implement a booking management system, whereas before they didn't. It was all manual, written in a book, what time. Something like that would prevent overlapping bookings. It will prevent reaching the maximum capacity of the place, knowing how many customers are in the place. Also allocating time slots for customers during weekends when it's busy, and that prevents also over drinking, being overserved, and many more policies in place.
When you refer to a booking management system, are you talking about a proper software program where it's all computerized?
Yeah, so it's a software management system that I used in the previous place I was working. It's called Fork Management, and you can book online. You get your confirmation, your time slot, and all the details are recorded as well. So in case if something bad happens or an incident or anything, you can contact the customers, and so there's more communication between us and the customers as well.
And you mentioned not overbooking. What is the capacity of the premises in terms of seated and standing and so forth, and also smoking and non-smoking, please?
Yeah, so the capacity of the whole premises, front of house and back of house, is 164. That's being 60 in the front of the house and 34 in the non-smoking area in the back of the house, and another 60 for the designated smoking area.
Just on that point, I think within the bundle that was sent through, and I think it was sent through, I think, as Mr. Dormer has made clear, it met the deadline of the council, but it was because of the bank holiday and so forth. It was not that long ago in terms of working days. I think in the bundle that you sent through, there are a number of pictures of the house that the committee can see. I've got them all here, but it's a little bit difficult. I don't know if you could maybe just hold those up and just show them both to committee and just around to the public.
Yes.
Thus, the facade. If you just very quickly do that, just so we get a good feeling for what's involved, please.
Yeah, certainly. So this is the front of the premises. As you can see, it's the Prince of Wales. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. Second picture is that's the entrance to the restaurant area. And that is the seating arrangement in the front of the house. Also another picture of the front of the house. And this is the seating area in the back terrace, the non-smoking designated area. Yeah. And then this is the smoking shelter. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just move on, but people may return to any of those issues in due course if they wish to question you about them. Parking was, I think, an issue under the previous ownership. Can you explain what happened or didn't happen under Mr. Abu Zaid's management, and what the arrangements are now, briefly, please?
So coming back to the main point is, again, talking about management. There was no management of parking. Patrons were allowed to park anywhere, and no one showed any attention to that. There was no visible signs on the parking. There was no notes on the website, which we do have now, leaving a note to all our customers to avoid parking in residential parking spots. Also, we're going to be employing 2 members of our staff, which are going to be fully trained to be able to manage the car park, move cars, and in worst case scenario, if we don't have any space for cars, the guests are going to be told to go back to rebook.
Thank you. I think it's right, briefly, that there is provision for car parking. I think it's just over 100 yards or 100 metres just up the road. There's provision for, is it some 27 cars? 27. So, if you...
Yeah. So there is another car park allocated for the staff and customers, which accommodates 27 vehicles, alongside with our on-site premises parking, which arranges for about 8 vehicles to be parked.
Briefly, in terms of walking, are there any customers local to the premises, and also are there any buses for those bus stops reasonably adjacent for those living further afield?
Yes, so we do get a lot of local customers which just live across the road nearby, which walk. We are located in a prime location, so it's there's 2 bus stops that you can travel to our premises at any time.
Thank you. Moving on to issues of noise. To what extent historically were there issues of noise, and if there were, how, if at all, have you controlled that, please?
So we've got a noise limiter which measures the music and the sound in the premises. We've had a professional inspector that came through, and he measured the noise outside the premises on Hillingdon Road and on Uxbridge Road, and I think in the pack there is the report there showing that there's no significant change when you're on the road, but majorly the sound of cars is the main sound. Also,
is that
yes,
the document you're referring to?
That is the document, yeah. So that's the document from Night and Sound Training, where we also given a sound meter where we can measure the noise from our premises, from the outside area and from the inside area. We can also put in place a log where we can take recordings and make sure that we are in the limit.
And have you got a sound meter, and have you been trained in that, and is it calibrated?
Yes, so we do have a sound meter which is here with me, and we have been trained to use it and how to log the measurements of sound, and they need to be updated every 6 months.
And in terms of noise from the premises, disposal of bottles and so forth, what happened historically, and what would be your proposal going forward?
So historically, as I recall, when they finished their shifts 1:30 or 2 o'clock, they used to go and take the bottles and put them in a bin at a late time, which I've seen was not really professional. What we'll be doing from now, if we have a condition, we will dispose of all the glass and all of the loud music early in the hours from 9 in the morning till about 12.
And just on this point, I think Environmental Health Officer has asked you to accept a number of conditions. Have you considered those conditions with Mr. Ahmed, and are you happy to agree to all of those should the subcommittee see fit to grant this licence?
We're more than happy to accept all the conditions and to show you that we are compliant with the conditions, and within the given time to show you that all the conditions are going to be met and complied with thoroughly.
So if I just hand those over to you, that was a letter from the HO. Sorry, possibly take us through those conditions just very briefly and just confirm.
Yes, certainly. So in regards of the prevention of public nuisance, the conditions are emptying of glass bottles into external receptacle to take place only between 9 and 8. Last entry into the premises Sunday to Thursday 10:30. Fridays and Saturday, last entry will be at 11:30. Hourly noise patrols during regulated entertainment, and record kept of noise patrol. Thank you.
And you're happy with all of those?
We're more than happy with all of those.
Thank you. Just moving on swiftly. Is there any, is there any, or likely to be any, drinking or smoking outside the boundary of the premises on the public highway or the public footpath?
There will be no drinking on the public footpath or anywhere outside the premises, only in the front of the house and the back terrace.
And what's your proposal over and above the staff employed at the premises to maintain order and control of customers as they arrive at the premises and also as they leave?
So when customers arrive at the premises, they'll be welcomed and greeted by a host, where we'll allocate them to their table, and all of this coming back to the booking management. Every single customer that's going to book is going to have their table designated for them, given their time slot, to avoid any overlapping bookings and to avoid any patrons walking in the premises.
And will any of the staff, are you proposing to subcontract out any door control functions to people trained with the SIA badges?
Yeah, like mentioned in the pack, we have contacted Prestige Protect, which is a quite big company that they do protection for Heathrow and for quite reputable companies, and they came and inspected the property, and they gave us a rough estimate that we need 2 door supervisors fully qualified between Wednesday to Saturday, depending obviously on how busy it is, but they're going to be fully qualified, and I think one of the members of the company is here as well.
But are you happy to abide by their recommendations in terms of door control?
We're more than happy to abide by the recommendation. I mean, they know what's best.
Again, with unduly harking back to what went wrong in the past, to what extent was there proper door control and use of SIA historically? So
historically, there was no proper SIA badge door supervisors. I think it was family members who were not fluent in the language, they cannot communicate with the customers, and they weren't carrying out the proper due diligence which SIA door supervisors should do.
Thank you. Nearly finished now, but just getting there. I mentioned in opening there's a proposal to, I think it's lease, an ID scanner to check in all customers at the premises, I think photographically and also in terms of fingerprints and so on. What's the position on that, please?
So historically, given that the premises got its license revoked because of underage drinking, we think this is a very important measure to put in place, that we're going to have an ID scanner where it meets Challenge 25, and the door supervisors, if they see anyone looking under the age of 25, they're going to have to be put through the scanner, and the refusal log also will be in place to show anyone that has been refused, so it just makes it better and easier for us.
Thank you. So I think there's details of the ID scanner in the pack, I think at quite considerable expense. And I think in terms of refusal log, you've got all the relevant documents here in a pack, should anyone wish to see them, in terms of refusal log, incident books and so forth, that you plan to use within the business. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Two last matters from me before I just invite the committee. I mentioned in opening that the main driver of the business is, in fact, the thing we've not talked about at all really, which is the food and the menu. I think there's an example of the existing menu within the pack. Can you just tell us a little bit about that, the kind of food on offer, maybe the average spend per customer head, and also what you propose, again, moving forward?
Yes, certainly. So we predominantly focus on our food. We want to offer our guests best experience. We offer a Mediterranean cuisine, which is basically the Mediterranean Sea, from Morocco, Egypt, Lebanon. So yes, our business is focusedly aimed on food. The average spend that we do have per head is about £30. That's including drinks.
Yes, in fact, that was something that confused me slightly. You describe it as a Mediterranean theme. That's effectively the kind of southern part of the Mediterranean as opposed to the northern shores.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct.
Which explains the more North African element of it, and that's the menu that we see in the pack provided to everybody with the application. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
And how many chefs do you employ at the premises?
We have 3 chefs, head chef and a sous chef and a master chef.
Thank you. And just while I mention it, what are the total numbers of staff employed at the premises?
The current number of employed staff is 8.
Thank you. And does that include all the waiters? I mean, in the future, should the license be granted, in terms of waiters, runners, kitchen, SIA, yourself, what numbers are we looking at?
In the future, it's completely different. We're looking at about 22 to 23 staff members.
Thank you. And then lastly, again, I haven't mentioned it, but you're seeking a license for recorded music, I think, and also live entertainment. What musical entertainment do you propose to provide, both within the premises and also in the covered smoking area?
So we want to provide entertainment now. I think it's something crucial that happens in a lot of premises, and we want to offer a belly dancer show. That's going to be a 20-minute performance in the front of the house and a 20-minute performance in the back terrace.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that will also be only on weekends, so Thursday, Friday and Saturday.
Thank you. So that's a very quick run through. Is there anything that you thought was very important to mention to the committee or those listening to the application of the authorities that I've not covered?
I think you've covered the majority of it, but coming back to historically, if this premises had the proper management and the proper due diligence in place, I don't think they would have had any issue. But then again, that was their decision, that they didn't employ a right manager, and Mr. Abu Zaid, I believe, he wanted to manage it himself with no given experience to management or no given experience to be a restaurantry.
Thank you very much, Chair. That's the bulk of...
Thank you for that very detailed speech. Thank you. We'll quickly go over to councillors. Do we have any questions? Yes, Councillor Gardner.
This is to Mr. Hassan. Can you tell me what the 4 licensing objectives are, please?
Yes, of course I can. It's the prevention of public safety, prevention of nuisance, prevention from children of harm, and prevention of nuisance, prevention of public safety, prevention of children from harm, and what's the you got me on the spot. Public safety, environment, children of harm, and nuisance. Oh, crime and disorder. That's the first one. Sorry. I'm a bit under pressure.
Councillor Gardner, supplementary at all? No. Councillor Smallwood.
Thank you. Question for Mr. Hassan, a couple if possible. When you left in May 2021?
That's correct.
Correct. And you started?
I started just in January.
So you did a 5-month period?
Yeah.
Fine. In that period, did you challenge Mr. Azad around the sale of alcohol to youngsters, around any of your concerns around the licensing issues that were taking place? This wasn't something that happened from reading on paperwork that happened in isolation. This was happening over a sustained period of time. And I just wanted to know what your reaction was to those licence breaches.
To be honest, as a waiter, even any customers that I look at them and they look under the age of 25, I used to ID them. But other customers that were underaged and didn't go through me, I had no knowledge of them drinking.
Fine, thank you.
Any further questions? I have a few. So mine's more about the application. So there's some questions which I have. It says in here, patrons, where are we? Patrons permitted to temporarily leave and re-enter the premises to smoke after 2200 hours shall be restricted to designated smoking areas defined at the front of the premises. You said a minute ago that they were going to be in the garden or the covered smoking area. Can you just elaborate on that for me?
So, before, and I won't certainly preempt anything specific that Mr. Hassan says, can I just say, Chair, that the operating schedule was put in by a licensing agent some time back, and I would just mention that I've identified, I've been instructed in the last 10 days or so, a number of places where possibly elements of that are not totally appropriate to these premises. But that's just a very general comment. I will leave the specifics to Mr. Hassan.
Yeah, I'd still like the question asked because you was there when this application was written, so I'd just like to know what your plan was.
Yeah, of course. So the front of house, that's non-smoking. Back terrace is smoking. There is in front of the house, I think I've got a picture here. Which
the tree area?
Yes, so the tree area, that is a smoking area as well.
Okay. And I have a second question. So you've said that you're going to have belly dancers, etc. on the weekend.
Just one belly dancer.
Okay, one belly dancer. It says in this application that loudspeakers shall not be located within the external garden area of the premises. How is a belly dancer going to dance without any loudspeakers?
And we've got the music on the TVs.
Okay. And just another one for my peace of mind. Where is your noise limiter located?
I've got a picture. It's just on this right here.
Right. Okay. So it's located.
It's located in the shelter. Yes.
Okay. That's it from me. Right. So just to double check, no further questions. Oh yeah, Councillor Smallwood.
I just wondered if I could ask Mr. Ahmed a question of how many other businesses or business interests he has or has had with Mr. Abazed?
No, he was running this AM Sahara City, I think since 2018, and apart from that he got some properties and rental income is coming. He doesn't have any other business.
So I'm interested in, you say you have no other business interests with him other than potentially taking over this property from him and having...
And obviously I'm acting as accountant for him for his rental properties.
Do you regard him as a friend?
Sorry?
Do you regard him as a friend or just a business colleague?
No, just a business contact.
Any supplementary there, sir? Councillor? No.
No, thank you, Chair.
Just while we're there, I may as well ask my final questions as well. In the prevention from children from harm, it says when you will only challenge children or people you believe under the age of 25 when attempting to purchase alcohol. What measures will you put in place if I'm 16, I come in with my 18-year-old brother? What measures will you have in place to prevent me getting alcohol from my brother?
So we'll put a policy in place, even if you come with someone that's older. We're not happy with underage people drinking in the premises.
Yep. Okay. And what is Challenge 25?
It's Challenge 25 speaks for itself. Anyone that looks under the age of 25 needs to be ID'd.
Okay. Thank you. I believe that's all from us for the... Oh, sorry. So if you'd like to take a seat, and if we can get the Daniel Ferreira licensing authority.
Well, sorry, Chair, can I just check whether Mr. Hassan or Mr. Ahmed wanted any other, because obviously there's quite a number of supporters and
I won't be allowing any other speakers. We've had no prior notice. I won't be allowing any other speakers on that.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. So if we can bring Daniel Ferreira up, and guys, if you'd like to take a seat for me, thank you.
Actually, they can take.
Oh, you can say, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, for the...
So, Chair, let me just get my stuff
no worries.
sorted out. Right, good afternoon, Chairman. Good afternoon, members of the Licensing Subcommittee. My name is Daniel Ferreira. I'm the Licensing Team Manager here at Hillingdon Council. I'm here on behalf of the Licensing Authority as a responsible authority in relation to this new application of the Licensing Act for the premises known as Prince of Wales, Sahara City, 1 Hillingdon Road, Hillingdon, UB8 3HX. The applicant has already detailed their application, essentially sale of alcohol, regulated entertainment from 10 to midnight, Sunday to Wednesday, and 10 to 0100 the following days, Thursday to Saturday. And they've also applied for late night refreshment with the same terminal hours. We, the Licensing Authority, have made this representation against this application based on the licensing objectives of prevention of crime and disorder, prevention of public nuisance, and protection of children from harm. My full representation, dated the 14th of March 2023, can be found at Annex 3, pages 43 and 45 of your bundle. Chairman, I don't propose to go through every single line, but I do think there's some appropriate points I'd like to address in relation to my submissions. Firstly, I should point out that, yes, I appreciate what Mr. Phillips has said. This is a new application. We accept that. By Game Measure Limited. But even though we don't want to hark on to the past, there is significant history and with this premises in relation to not promoting the licensing objectives. And I have to say that, I believe I'm duty bound to say that with the history, even though there is submissions, arguments to say that this will be a new separate entity, Game Leisure Limited. The premises licence was revoked after a deep, long history, and that was a summary expedited review by the police in December 2021, where they withdrew, the previous licence holders withdrew the appeal. And so, in January of this year, residents contacted us with concerns that the premises was trading earlier this year in January without any notice. They didn't have to notify us. And so as a result, on the 18th of January, I visited the premises and I met with Mr. Hassan and Mr. Sheikh Ahmed. And they did state at that point in time that no licensable activities were taking place and that application was due to be submitted. And I listened carefully to what they had to say. But in this meeting, I did have some sort of concerns, and backed up with looking at the application. Clearly, we have concerns in terms of the links that overlap with the old management, and I have to put them out there. And those are the points that they will hold the leasehold, not the freehold, and so BZ would have that. We've seen from the statement that it will be until June that Mr. Abuzed will retire, and so that we are in this transitional period. There is, we say, risk there. Both companies share the same address, And again, that's been rebutted, if you like, by the applicant saying that that was the address of the firm of his accountancy. The other links would be they're looking at essentially retaining staff, though he has mentioned that he was just a waiter. The interactions that I have with him, in fact, meeting him on the 8th of January, previous meetings, you were sitting shoulder to shoulder with Mr. Abuzed, and so that is the impression that I have. You may have been on black and white in paper, a waiter, but you were aware of the situation there. Whether you said anything or not is difficult, but you were aware of that deep history. And also, most notably, at this meeting in early January, the operators both said to me that the operation would not change, i.e. a restaurant, yes, but also a shisha premises in the rear. Now, he's been very careful in his submissions about using smoking and non-smoking, but essentially the premises, we have to say, is a shisha premises. They can clarify that in the rear, and that is the character and the nature of the premises. And if that's not going to change, we have similar risks in the future, we say. So with those links, with those overlaps, if you like, those blurrings, we say there is a risk in the future and we have to raise them. I'll quickly go through the concerns that I have with the licensing objectives, but I'm mindful of the responsible authorities also here. Firstly, crime and disorder. Again, PC Penny Brown is here, but since 2019 there has been a history of violence, intoxication, non-compliance with conditions attached to the licence, and poor management. Two key scenarios, incidents if you like. December 2019, the licensing authority ourselves formally reviewed the premises licence, and that was essentially triggered by a big brawl out there. In December 2021, the police licensing carried out a summary expedited review of the premises licence, and that was essentially a knife attack where 4 victims were injured, and that was midnight 41 on the 27th of November. In terms of public nuisance, again, my colleague Adam Sitson will speak more onto that, but the application that has been applied for is for live music, recorded music, and dance up to 1 o'clock in the morning, Thursday to Saturday. We say, even though the conditions that they've put in their operating schedule, and I've read the statement of the proposed conditions which they agreed to, like a sound limit and stuff like that, there is still potential disturbance from music noise, but also dispersal as well from customers leaving. And again, I went from 2019, history of complaints. And even though the premises has been trading since January, this licensing authority has received complaints from residents about loud music, but also bottle dispersal as well, bottle being thrown into their bins. So we have received complaints since they have started in January. And finally, protection from children from harm. Serious concerns in the past that we've had with this licensing objective, particularly with the history of the underage customers at the premises being served. This was highlighted in our formal review of the premises licence in 2019, but more significantly in the recent expedited review by the police, where I believe one of the victims was a 16-year-old, and they gave an account that her and her friends had been consuming alcohol there. Chairman, the question really for us is, can these new operators change, I think, the culture at the premises of the non-compliance, the bad management? You know, I appreciate that there is the intention there, but it is what happens in practice. The premises in the past had similar conditions attached to Challenge 25, but it was recognised that none of it was being followed at all. And that is going to be a challenge for the applicant if they receive this licence. It's not going to be easy. He mentioned that he left because it was too stressful, Mr. Hassan. That might be similar cases as well. I hope that's not the case. But Chairman, those are my submissions in relation to this application. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Just before we start, just double checking you had the addendum bundle as well. Yep.
I did.
Did you have appropriate time to read it?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from the councillors at all? No? Thank you very much, Daniel.
Chair, am I entitled to ask any questions of Mr.
Yeah, go on, I'll let you ask one question. If I feel it goes on too long, I will stop you. But yes, you're entitled to.
So I've just got one, have I?
Yeah, just one.
Oh gosh, it's like Aladdin's tales or something. Mr. Ferrer, you've mentioned concerns, obviously, about what went on historically, and we've recognised all of those. Have you got any evidence at all that under Mr. Ahmed's ownership, which is entirely independent, that and assuming his intention to ensure that all the conditions are complied with, is there any evidence available to you at all that there will be breach of the licensing objectives if he complies with all the conditions that he's volunteering to the committee today? Evidence.
We've received complaints, which I have just mentioned in relation to public nuisance. The premises have been operating since January, so if that's evidence, the logging of complaints, then that's what I'll put forward. And I should also point out that because of concerns from residents and the allegation that they may have been providing licensable activities, our out-of-hours officers visited the premises. I see Mr. Hassan is and asked, the status on what they were doing, and they were shown behind the bar, but there was no alcohol there, but there was alcohol at the premises, and Mr. Hassan or a duty manager confirmed that was the customers were bringing their own and they had sought legal advice. And so that's the relevant history, I think, in answer to Mr. Phillips' question.
Okay, thank you. I will open that, as we've had further debate, I'll open it again to the councillors. Do you have any questions on that?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask a question, Daniel, about around timings and previous instances. So it seems to me, from what I'm hearing, the serious incidents that happened previously were happening later in the day, when one would probably assume that people have drunk more alcohol. I think most people, around the table would agree that as you drink more alcohol, more incidents are likely to happen. I don't think that's going to be a shock to anybody here, without needing any evidence to prove it. I just wondered whether you had concerns over the quite late opening hours that the premises were, and whether you thought potentially if they were more regulated and with shorter times, that may alleviate some of the problems that we had previously.
Certainly, if we look at going back in sort of time, if you like, I've mentioned already in my submissions the 1 o'clock. Those, I know that incidents have occurred at the premises in terms of crime and sort of the two that I've mentioned happened after midnight. And so there is history of that. I need to go further and look at the specific details of noise complaints at those times as well. But generally, I would say that's right. The later the time, the more problems. And that's natural with any other premises.
Any supplementary?
So just to be clear, since the reopening in January, how many complaints and of what nature have they been? I just wondered if you could give me a little bit more detail on what these complaints are and what they look like.
Okay, on the 28th of the 3rd of this year, there was a complaint received about bottle collections happening after 10 o'clock. On the 18th of the 3rd, midday, there was a complaint by two separate residents about loud music being played at the premises. On the 27th of the 3rd, 23, there was a complaint about car park attendants outside the premises. And there was also one on the 21st of the 3rd, 23, so these are all in March. There was a query complaint about a wake happening at the premises, and the thought that there might be licensed activities taking place.
Okay, Councillor Smallwood.
Thank you, Chair. Has there been any evidence since the reopening in January that any alcohol is being purchased on site? Not consumed, obviously, because they've taken.
We haven't had confirmation of that, Chair.
Right. Okay, thank you. Right, Daniel, thank you very much. If you'd like to take. Oh, sorry, Councillor Gardner, she snuck in there. Sorry.
Sorry, Daniel, you said on the 28th of March people were complaining about bottles. Now, Mr. Hassan said that people bring their own alcohol in to drink, but I'm just thinking must have been a hell of a lot.
Well, there was no follow-up visit from that, so I've got no further details on that. I hate to sort of like speculate. It could have been non-alcoholic,
Yeah,
for example.
no, that's cool.
Okay, thank you. Daniel, if you'd like to take a seat, thank you very much. And can we get the ASB team, please, Adam? Thank you.
Thanks very much. Adam Stitson, Hillingdon Council Antisocial Behaviour Team. Daniel has already said quite a lot related to matters that I would discuss as well, so if it's okay with the committee, I won't simply repeat those. I will simply note that the concerns to the Antisocial Behaviour Team were under the Prevention of Public Nuisance. A number of conditions were put forward. I note that these have been agreed to by the applicants now, which we note and are grateful for. I also note that there has been discussion around a noise limiter and sound recorder, and I'd like to make a request that the council visit the premises to look over these and discuss them with the applicant. I also note that with regard to any potential disturbance from live music and or recorded music, that these will be addressed by the applicants, both in terms of hourly noise patrols, the noise limiter, and a record being kept of noise patrols, all of which are very important. I would share my colleagues' concern over a previous culture of non-compliance with the premises, which is quite extensive. I won't say any more here, although I would corroborate the complaints that have come in. Daniel listed the complaints from the previous month, which have been brought to my attention as well, although I do note, which Dan also mentioned, that a visit from an officer in the Antisocial Behaviour Team was carried out, words of advice were given, and further assurances of compliance were received on that time. So the concerns regarding the conditions have been addressed. We would like further interaction with the premises regarding the issues mentioned. The final point that I would make, and I am sure this is probably mentioned by the officer as well, and that there is a licence for live and recorded music and other aspects. There is no licence for causing a nuisance. And although any licence may be granted, there can still be very, very serious consequences were statutory noise nuisance to be witnessed by the visiting officers, both in terms of a move to have the licence examined once again, but also in terms of a straightforward prosecution should a noise abatement notice be issued and breaches of that notice be witnessed by council officers. Thank you.
Yep, so just want to double check, have you had time to look at the addendum?
I have looked at that. I cannot say that I have looked at it in an enormous amount of detail because I was on leave last week and just came into that this morning. So, but I've discussed my concerns with my colleagues, and I have no points to make.
You're happy with the information?
I'm happy with that information.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, do we have any questions? Yes, Councillor Smallwood.
Thank you, Chair. Is there a noise meter outside?
That was already answered. There is one.
There is one outside?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I didn't pick that up. Apologies.
Any further questions? No. I have one brief one. Since the licence has been removed, have you seen a decrease in ASB complaints?
Yes, definitely. Since the licence is removed, there's been a decrease in ASB complaints. Yes, because they're in excessively high volume prior to.
Okay. Thank you very much. No further questions from us. You can take a seat. And the next people are, I believe are you coming up together? PC Dave Butler and PC Penny Brown. just before we start, have you guys seen the addendum pack?
Yes, I received it about 1:20 this afternoon, but Mr. Phillips kindly showed me a paper copy outside as well, so I was able to go through it with him.
Okay, and are you happy with the information provided?
Yes,
thank you.
Good afternoon. Yes, I'm PC Penny Brown from the Police Licensing Team. As has already been discussed, obviously, our priority being crime and disorder, or prevention of crime and disorder, I feel I still have to repeat things that have already been said today. Obviously, there's been no dispute about the previous serious problems at the venue. Obviously, we've mentioned earlier that was the review in October 2019 because of a serious assault. Under 18s were present at that time. As a result of that review, Mr. Abu Zaid was removed as the DPS and conditions were imposed on the licence. Following further complaints, further problems with breaches of the licence, and then a serious assault in November 2021, where, as has already been mentioned, 4 people did suffer knife injuries, and one of the victims was a 16-year-old female who had been drinking at the venue. There was another review of the licence, which, as we know, resulted in the licence being revoked. Obviously, as I say, Mr. Abu Zaid was removed as the DPS at the first hearing. However, he did continue in his involvement in the business, even though he was not DPS. I appreciate that wasn't conditioned at the time, and it has been mentioned going forward that is a possibility. I would say that we still do have some concerns. I appreciate that Mr. Phillips and Mr. Ahmed have gone through a lot of the operation. I do still have a few concerns and questions around some of that. There was mention about the HMO, the address above the pub. Obviously, you're saying staff are there at the moment. I would like a little bit further clarification, if I may, about whether Mr. Abu Zaid is living there himself and keeping property there himself, as I understood that he was. I don't know whether that can be clarified at some point. I'd also, obviously, we're looking at Mr. Ahmed and Mr. Hassan as being in charge of this property now, this premises now, the venue. I would like to know a little bit more about Mr. Ahmed's involvement, whether or not, obviously his business, he's the director of that business, and he's mentioned having numerous other businesses and dealing with the accounts. What will his involvement be in this venture? What has it been over the last few months, and what will it be going forward? Will he be involved with any of the decisions there? Will he be involved with the staffing there? Will he be upholding any of the conditions, or will this solely be down to Mr. Ahmed? Moving on to Mr. Ahmed, I appreciate, obviously, he's worked at the venue before. I'm not sure if it was in the new information, but I'm not sure when he got his personal licence. I haven't... Sorry if I'm saying it wrong. Mr. Hassan, I do apologise, Mr. Hassan, yes. Sorry, every time I've said... I'm not sure what I was saying there, yeah, sorry. I tried to make a note. Mr. Hassan, apologies. Obviously, Mr. Hassan has said that he witnessed things that weren't being done properly before, behaviours weren't challenged, and he didn't feel able to challenge them back then as a part-time waiter, and he says it was a stressful venue and problematic. I would like to know what has changed to make him think that he is able to not only deal with those matters now, but deal with them as a DPS, to have to deal with the staff as well, to ensure that they are also challenging his behaviours, to make sure it is run appropriately and responsibly, as it obviously hadn't been before. The staff that were there before, are they the same staff that are there now? Are they the same staff that are living above the venue? These are all sort of concerns that I have that may or may not be able to be cleared up. With regards to the ID scanner, I was a little bit uncertain about when that's planning to be used. Is that just when they believe that there's a Challenge 25 issue, or is this the SIA on the doors on entry? So is it only going to be at the weekends, at the late nights? What will be the policy on under 18s entering the premises, and will they be allowed there late at night, or are they going to be restricted at certain times? Is this ID checks on the door for entry, or is this for the sale of alcohol? So a few questions there around the operation and concerns about how that's going to be managed, and as we've said, it's very important that we address this issue with the under-18s, as it has been a historic issue there before. Just have a look through my notes. About the capacity, I may have miscounted or misheard. If we can just at some point just clarify the capacity, I believe it was 60 in the front and 60 in the rear smoking plus 34 non-smoking, which I made 154 as opposed to 164. I'm just wondering whether or not that's going to be checked and adhered to. Is there going to be a counter on the doors? Is that going to be something that's going to be monitored and stuck to? Let me just double check to see if there are any other things that have popped up. I think that was it from myself. Thank you.
Okay. PC Butler, do you have anything to add?
Just when we're summing up, Chair, so a couple of relevant questions.
Yeah, no problem. Councillors, do we have any questions for the police? Yes, Councillor Smallwood.
Do we know what because it's a new name that's come in, Mr. Al-Manshari's involvement is now?
Sorry, which one, sorry?
As a result of the review, the further conditions were imposed on the licence and Mr. Abazad was removed as DPS and replaced by Mr. Al-Manshari. How's he do the police know how he is now involved? Because then there was a further incident when obviously Mr. Al-Manshari took over as the DPS. Apologies if I'm pronouncing that name incorrectly. I'm just trying to understand whether we know or the police are aware of his involvement.
My understanding and research, and obviously the applicants can correct me if I'm wrong, that I have not seen that he's in any way involved with the venture at the moment. But I'd be keen to know if he is still involved or not.
Okay, guys, can we answer that one?
No, there's no involvement for Mr. Al-Manshari.
Okay. So he's in the paperwork, but he's not involved?
He's not in the paperwork. What paperwork is he in?
What are you pointing?
He was in the
Appendix 3, page 48 of the original document.
Okay.
Refers to him. He isn't referred to many times else, but is referred to. I just want to understand who he was, how he was involved, and whether he's still involved.
Right. Okay, so just seeing here, he was a previous DPS of the premises, so it's since changed and from there. Okay.
Just for the record, he's no longer involved at all.
Right. Okay. Do we have any more questions for the police? From your point of view, I always have a couple. Has the police had to attend the site within the last 12 months? Have we had any call-outs?
No, I have done a check to see if there's been any calls there. There's been nothing related to the venue. August 22, Mr. Abuzed did make a report, and at that time he was giving that as his address, and detailing property was there without going into details of his report. So it wasn't with regards to any business operations at the venue.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Small, to indicate?
So just to be very clear, Mr. Abuzed was giving his property address as his home property address August last year.
That's correct, 10th of August 2022, yes.
Thank you.
Guys, can we confirm, does Mr. Abuzed still live at the property?
He does not. He does not live at the property at the moment.
Okay, so he's moved out.
Left, yeah.
How long ago?
About 5-6 months ago.
Okay.
Before we've taken over.
Okay, and can we also, just in line with the police, can we confirm the capacity? Is it 154 or is it 164?
154.
154.
60 front of house, 60 smoking, and 34 non-smoking.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Councillor Smallwood?
Just in line with the police and just trying to understand people's relationships and how people know each other, because I think that helps us to sort of like build an understanding of how people get to know each other. I just wondered if you could understand how obviously Mr. Abuzed hired you. You must have got to know him in some way, but just how you got to know Mr. Abuzed, and then as his accountant, how you got to know Mr. Hassan, if possible, just to understand how you got to know them.
Yeah, so I was just roaming around, gave him my CV. I'm looking for a job. I'm a student. I can do these type of hours. Started working there. I think in the first 2 months, then I met Mr. Shiraz. He used to come just with his family, and then we got to know each other a bit better.
Okay. Yes.
Chair, am I allowed to ask any questions of the police?
You can ask one.
How did I guess? Right. PC Brown. I appreciate your objection was made without any visit to the property, or indeed, I think, even meeting or conversation with either of these two gentlemen. That's not my question.
Okay.
So it's fair to say, it would be fair to say, that all of your concerns are kind of hypothetical, really based on what happened historically, and therefore the potential risk for them to be repeated in some way for some reason in the future. And what you're saying is, if that were to happen, that would be, against the objectives, and that's something the committee should obviously avoid.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, as has been pointed out, there was some serious failings, some serious disorder, under 18s, knife injuries. So there was a review, and then there was a second review. So it's something that we 100% we don't want to happen again. And yes, basing it on the application that was put before us, obviously I could see a lot of similarities between the running of the establishment before and the intentions going forward, and the links there between the people concerned in the running of it before and, as I say, going forward now. So yes, that's what my objections have been based on.
PC Butler, would you like to make any comment on that?
Yeah, just in relation to that last comment, I've made 2 previous attempts to contact your original agent, Mr. Panchal, by leaving a message, and that was over a period of the last 3 months, and most recently in the last 3 weeks. Again, I made an attempt, Chair, but never got a reply from Mr. Panchal.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, guys, for your submission. Just to double check, councillors, no further questions. May take a seat. Thank you. So next up, we've got interested parties, I believe, yeah?
Yes.
And I believe we've got Councillor Bennett.
Chair, I don't wish to interrupt Councillor Bennett at all. He must proceed. But can I just check with your with Mr. Clark that no notice was given of any other witnesses? Because certainly I asked Mr. Panchal, who was liaising, to give notice of those people who are going to be speaking, and in addition to these 2 gentlemen, I think there were a couple of local residents who wished to speak in support of the application. If I can just clarify that.
Yeah, if you may.
So we did receive emails from some residents who wished to speak at the licensing hearing, but speaking rights are only obtained by submitting a formal representation during the consultation period, which closed on the 17th of March. So these emails were received after the 17th of March, therefore they don't automatically have speaking rights at the hearing today. There were a couple of people who did submit representations, and we're getting to them shortly, if they are in attendance, but there were a few emails that we had to send out saying, apologies, but you have missed the window, essentially, to submit a formal representation.
So just on that point, though, I think you invite applicants to say who's going to represent you and which witness the applicant's going to call. And I think there were a couple of residents, other names on that list. I didn't see the form.
So we have a Shahib, sorry if I pronounce this wrong, Shahib Khalid, and then we have a Pamprajit Sidhu. Sorry if I've got them wrong. Okay.
We also had a Heidi Roberts, but she confirmed that she couldn't attend today as well.
Yeah.
So, but we do have Shahid Khaled, yes.
Yeah. Paramit.
Shahid Khaled and Paramit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think your normal button happy would be that if an applicant gives notice that they want to call witnesses in support of their application, and that's on the form, then they would normally be allowed to call those people simply to express any comments that they may have in favour.
It would only be if those people have submitted formal representations during the consultation period, which we did receive from those 3 who are listed to speak in a short while.
Yep.
You didn't receive from Shahid Khaled or Paramit?
We did.
Oh, you did? And
we did.
So in that case, they would normally be entitled to speak?
They will be speaking shortly.
Speak
yes.
on.
So apologize.
No problem.
I'm sorry.
They're on the list. But yeah.
Okay.
We'll put it down to the heat in the room.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bennett, thank you for your patience.
Thank you,
if
Chairman.
you'd like to speak.
Yes, so Councillor Adam Bennett, so I'm one of the 2 councillors for Hillingdon West Ward, which borders where the Prince of Wales is located on the Uxbridge Road. And so my interest is all of the residents that live along there, several of whom have got in touch to express their frustrations around just years gone by. I think we've probably spoken about that enough as a committee so far, but in their eyes, this property is tainted, and in an entirely residential area, they don't feel it's suitable that loud music and it's played up until 1 in the morning. I've got a few questions, if that's okay, Chairman, to ask.
I will let you have one.
You'll let me have one. I will ask then on the parking. So you mentioned 164, 154. We've got how many parking on site again? Was it 8?
8 on site and 27 on the other area.
And 27. Could you just elaborate the other area and what role that plays in this application?
So it's a parking place for customers and staff.
And that's like a private residential property or private car park?
Yeah, we lease the car park.
Okay.
We're leasing it.
And how does it work with deliveries?
With deliveries, they're on their mopeds. They just come, put the food in the back, and they're off. So there's no cars at all.
And deliveries of items to the premises, the big lorries that will turn up to deliver food?
We don't have. We have only a transit van, which we get our stock from Booker's and Macro and all of these places.
Okay.
We don't have lorries.
So 24th of March, I was travelling along the Hillingdon Road. There was a queue of traffic backed up onto the Uxbridge Road, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. As we turned in, it was because there was a long articulated lorry parked illegally, half bumped up onto the pavement outside the premises, loading stuff in and out of. So that doesn't happen.
Did it have beefer on the lorry? It's probably the waste control. Waste.
I can spot the difference between a waste and recycling truck and a delivery lorry.
Okay. So can we just have a look into the large articulated vehicle? Do you have any other questions on that?
No. I think clarification on deliveries and when people are delivering to premises, where are they going to park? Is there suitable location within the site, and if not, what's the plan to not impact residents with that?
Okay. Councillors, do we have any questions? Yes, Councillor Smallwood.
Thanks, Councillor Bennett. I just wondered if you could say how many, since the property reopened in January, how many residents have been in contact and the types of contact that they've made with you, positive or negative. I wouldn't like to preempt. That was number one. And number two has gone out of my head. So if you go on to that one, hopefully I'll remember what my second one was. But the sort of contact you've had from residents.
Yeah. So there's around about 5 on the Uxbridge Road, and interestingly, they've all lived there quite a long time. Their properties are actually quite set back, so they have very large front gardens. So I think that's testament to the level of noise that they've had to put up with. The 18th of March incident was flagged to me by 3, that actually living in a property so far back from the Uxbridge Road, you still hear the noise from the garden, noise limiter installed allegedly. But more broadly than that, it's the antisocial behaviour, the urinating in people's front gardens, people having to feel that they've had to, at their own expense, install quite large security gates at the front of their properties because there's been damage to items that they have in the garden, or they feel vulnerable by patrons leaving and entering their premises in the early hours of the morning. Their view is that a Mediterranean restaurant, as in the application, would be really good for the community. Does a restaurant need to open till 1 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, and then presumably allow people to leave up until say 2 o'clock? It just doesn't feel that it fits with the area, and that's really their frustration.
Yes, Councillor.
Thank you. The final thing is around the antisocial behaviour is the times of the day that people are saying it's happening. Is it happening at 11 o'clock in the morning? Is it happening at 1 o'clock in the morning, 9:30 in the evening? What sort of times of day are you getting it? Is it consistent, regular?
Yeah, I mean, the majority of the time it's late at night into the early hours of the morning. Certainly the ASB that I've just described would be, I've had personal observation. I live in the ward not near there, but I've driven past under the previous management, a lot of illegal parking on Hillingdon Road, double yellow lines, bumped up cars parked on the pavement. generally, yeah, late in the evening as well. The incident, though, on the 18th of March, which I think was a Saturday, was midday, loud music that they had heard. But that was more of an anomaly, I would say. Didn't fit the trend of previous complaints.
Okay. Councillor Gardner, any questions at all?
Just one, and it's considering the licensed premises that are along the road, okay, apart from there, you can't prove that somebody having a pee in somebody's front garden would have come from the Prince of Wales. Yeah.
No, that's a fair point. You've got the red line, you have the Vine Inn, you have to take residents' word and what they say as the truth. But you're right, they wouldn't necessarily know it was coming from this premises versus somewhere else. What we do know, though, is that most of the patrons who go to the Vine Inn generally park their car on Vine Lane, the Rise, Chetwynd Drive. They generally park in that sort of area when they leave. So I'm not sure whether there would be that much going down the Uxbridge Road. But.
Okay. I think we've had enough conversation on P. I know I never thought I'd say that in the council, so that's another one. Councillor Bennett, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your patience. You may be seated. Thank you. So we have Thomas Craig. Is he here? Yeah. So whenever you're ready, just press the red button.
Good afternoon, everybody. Since the Prince of Wales has been owned by the current owners, we as residents have endured ongoing antisocial behaviour from the patrons. This has included singing, shouting and screaming from inside and outside the pub. Customers leaving the premises are extremely noisy whilst waiting for their taxis. They congregate in groups outside and are often shouting loudly, which is disturbing residents in their sleep. The excessive loud noise and music being played on many occasions is so loud to be heard above our TVs in our sitting rooms, and is a constant disturbance. The owner has proposed in the new application that you would have live music and other forms of live entertainment. And obviously now my question was, how does he propose to limit the excessive noise? Well, he's answered that. But there was a noise limiter in place last time, which didn't obviously work. As an example, on the 18th of March, which has been documented already, between the hours of 1:30 p.m. and 6 p.m, music was being played so loudly we had to call the out-of-hours department at Hillingdon. Unfortunately, we had no response from there, so we called the police licence in. We are aware that other residents had cause, as has been confirmed, to put in complaints about this music. The owner proposes a no entry after 10:30 and 11:30. This has to be enforced by his staff. And these staff have proved in the past to be unable to control the number of people entering the pub and ability to control large groups, as they are now proposing they're going to change all that. But they are unable to control these groups by leaving the premises and the noisy behaviour outside. We feel the staff at present are not experienced enough to take control of the situation and stop the disorder escalating into violence, as history of the pub has proven. The parking issues, as has been said by Councillor Bennett and the police already, there's the parking problems, and patrons park on the yellow lines outside. Customers reversing out of the small car park onto the Harlington Road, which then causes traffic problems onto the Uxbridge Road when they're turning left and right into Harlington Road. Sometimes buses are held up, long queues of traffic, as Councillor Bennett has said, trying to park cars outside the pub, which on a single track road is very difficult. There is insufficient parking in the car park to accommodate customers, therefore putting pressure on surrounding roads. As Mr Hassan has said they've hired another car park, which is, I believe, is by Coney Green, the property on Coney Green.
It's just by the bus stop on the left,
which is
to the entrance.
Which is Coney Green.
Yeah.
There's a property there with a large paved area.
Yes, that's the property.
Right. But that means the customers will then have to walk from there, say 200 yards, 200-300 yards from there to the pub.
Yeah, about 150 yards, 200 yards.
It's not ideal when it's pouring down with rain, I'm sure, but I'm sure they'll cope.
Yeah.
We know the Prince of Wales has a new management team and should be aware of the ongoing issues that the residents have suffered. The recent incidents of the 18th of March that I've already mentioned support this. Therefore, it is evident the existing staff will do nothing to change the situation, and we strongly oppose this application for the reasons I have given.
Thank you very much. Councillors, do we have any questions? Yes, Councillor Smallwood.
If I may, Mr Craig's point, I just raised a question, Mr Hassan. It's around the amount of change there's been in staffing, right? I'm a big football fan, and sometimes you have to sack the manager, but sometimes it's not just about sacking the manager, it's also about getting rid of some of the rubbish players, and that's how you make a football team successful. Mine's doing quite well at the moment, so I'm quite happy. But I just wondered how much staffing change there has been. So, what is the turnover of staff? How many new people have you got in there? And I'm talking about the front of house people, I'm not necessarily talking about the chefs, because they probably aren't going to be directly involved with that, but it's the people who are going to be doing the Challenge 25, it's the people who are going to be running the door, it's the people who are going to make the day-to-day operations happen. How much staff change is there in place?
So I can confirm that the front of house staff are all going to be changed from the previous staff that we've had, and there's going to be interviews where questions of experience with Challenge 25 in place. If not, there'll be training in place for them to be trained on Harry or on any other platform of training where they graduate with a certificate showing that they've passed and that they went through all the right due diligence and all the information given to be able to carry out Challenge 25.
Any supplementary? I have a question for yourself. How long have you lived near the Prince of Wales? I don't want you to let me know where you live, I just want to know how long you've lived there.
Approximately 20 years.
So you lived there when the pub was open as a pub?
Yes.
Yes. And did you have the same problems that you had then that you have now?
No.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
It's mainly, of anything, it's the noise. But the noise coming from the temporary, I don't know what you want to call it, covered area has got no sound proofing. It's open. They play very loud music from the TVs that you have out there for the belly dancers or whatever it is, but there's no soundproofing there. It's open.
Okay.
So therefore, it's even with a noise limiter on it, how do you propose then to keep the noise from spreading?
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smallwood?
Thank you. Just wanted to pick on that, Mr. Craig. Thank you very much. So is your main concern the late night noise? And I guess my question is, if you live near a pub, you expect, I guess, sometimes the odd thing will happen because you live near a pub, right? I guess it's a bit like if you live near an airport, a plane might take off, right? Those things tend to happen. Is the main driver, when you sort of look at it in the cold light of day, the late night noise and the disturbance? Is that the main thing that is a concern? The sort of the 90% of it is that. And if that wasn't there, and somebody took a pee in a garden or somebody swore at somebody once, you'd probably go, "Oh, that happened."
I don't think anyone's ever peed in my garden.
Good.
But I'm unaware they have. But yes, the noise is definitely a major issue. Plus is the worry that we have of the violence spilling over. And also, I just lost the thread there. The controlling of the patrons leaving, the noise, and to be fair, if this is an issue, they want a tissue bar, belly dancers, loud music. Why open in a completely residential area? Why didn't buy a pub in a town centre, not in a residential area that is so closely packed with people who need their sleep, or children, and etc.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Yeah, I completely understand your point, but it's up to them where they decide to buy their business, of course. We're only here to judge the licensing application. Yeah, one question. Remember, he's not a councillor, he's a member of the public. Please be gentle.
I'm always gentle. Mr. Craig, can I just ask, what is your address and how far away, and how far away is that from these premises?
Just one moment.
I'm not going to give you my
address.
Well,
and I'm referring to...
I'm not going to give you my address.
1712 of your policy, Chair, requires representations to give the name, full address and postcode of the person making the rep. So
okay, yeah, I just want to double check something.
This was the amended policy, but I think it's... Because obviously we need to know who's objecting and where...
So we can confirm that the address has been provided to us. We're mindful of the fact that this is a public hearing and it's being shared via YouTube. I think you'll need to get Mr. Craig's consent to share it on live YouTube if that's what he wants to do. But we can confirm that his full address has been provided. He is an interested party. If you want to give a roundabout address in terms of not giving necessarily your number, it's a matter for you, Mr. Craig, but that's my advice at the moment.
I'm not prepared to give my address, but I will say I live within a stone's throw of the premises and certainly close enough to hear plenty of noise.
If I can just clarify, the stone's throw is very vague. I'd like to know, because my understanding is that it's over 100 yards away, which is not an immediately neighbouring property.
30 to 40 metres.
Well, and that's your evidence, is it, to this committee?
Sorry, guys. As the chairman, I'm happy with 30 to 40 metres. Okay, I'm happy with that. I don't think we need any further details. Even if he was 100 metres and the property is still hearing noise, that doesn't look very good for you guys. So let's just leave that point there. Thank you. Do we have any further questions at all? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Craig. You may leave if you want to, or you can take a seat. It's up to you. Thank you. Thank you. Interested parties. We've got Shahib Khalid. Anyone? Okay, so that they're not here? Right, okay, so if the second party, so was it Pramapreet? Have I got that right? Don't be nervous, take a seat, get yourself comfortable, just remember to hit the red button, otherwise no one can hear you.
So this will be really brief. I just wanted to say that myself, my friends and family, so for quite a few years actually, we've been visiting Prince of Wales, and we've not really, I've been in the day, in the evening, and I've been with my family, and we've not really experienced any problems at all. Like in terms of music and licensing, the alcohol license stuff, I've genuinely not experienced anything at all. Recently, obviously, when Mr. Hassan has been managing, they're all really polite, they're all really friendly, and I've had people I work in hospital in Harrow, and I've had people come all the way from Harrow because they like the atmosphere and they enjoy it there, and we've never had any trouble.
Do we have any questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor Gardner.
Presumably you haven't been there really, really late at night.
I have actually quite a few times, but I'm never really. So when it's closing time, we're asked politely to leave. We leave, and we go home.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Smallwood, do you have any questions? Have you ever had your ID checked?
Yes, I did actually. Oh, yes, I have actually.
Okay.
So when I moved to the area, which was actually quite a while ago, but when I started going to principals at first, I did quite a few times. But obviously once I start getting to know them, they knew my age.
Right. Okay. Councillor Smallwood.
Sorry, just to pick on it. When was the first time you attended? When do you think, not the exact day, but a period around, I don't need to say the 12th of October, 19... Yeah, when was the first time you went to the Prince of Wales, do you think? I guess my point is, you just made a comment that you had your ID checked, but there is a history of IDs not being checked in the premises, etc., etc. So I was just trying to work out.
So, funnily enough, because I wasn't from the area and I've moved from South East London, so when I did have it, it was a bit initially, but it didn't come to. It was something normal for me. Like I'm not saying because I look young, but I just thought that every place would do it. So it wasn't something that I would think like, why is someone checking ID?
Okay. Any supplementary?
Yep. And how did you get to know Mr. Sand? Just through the Prince of Wales? Did you know him previously?
It's just literally like when we're there, obviously just talking, just how are you, just because we go there regularly.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Nice, short and sweet. You can take a seat. Thank you. Right, so the next section now, we go on to the broader discussion.
Sorry, can I, being a nuisance, I'm sorry. Can I just double check that we've got a next door neighbour here, Janice Ann Hopper. Can I check that she didn't get comments in time?
Wasn't on our list of people who'd made formal representations. Okay. We had 3 in support. One has confirmed that they couldn't attend today, and then we had Mr. Shahid Khalid and Parampreet Sidhu.
Okay. And is there no way under your procedure that we would have any latitude to call that person, only because they live immediately next door, may be able to assist the subcommittee in making its decision? But if you consider not, then obviously we're bound.
I'm very mindful. Yes, okay, we'll allow it. We'll go. We'll play a curveball. We'll go for it.
I'm extremely grateful. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And I've not spoken to this lady, so I don't know what she's going to say.
I understand your reasoning behind it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take your time. Red button. Can you also give your full name, please, when you speak, because we don't have any record of you at the moment. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I missed the date. I did send an email. I did get a response from Stephen. My name's Janice Hopper. I live immediately next door, number 3 Hillingdon Road. I've lived there for 25 years. It is a pub. It does make some noise. Sometimes it is late. I was in residence when the fights kicked off, and I do frequent the place. I've been there a number of times. Not quite so much recently, but I've probably been there 3 times since Christmas maybe. But having lived next door to a pub for 25 years, I've seen the other owners of the pubs as well. I was very familiar with the previous owner. I have not met this gentleman at all yet. I look forward to in the future. And yeah, the management was a little poor, mainly driven by lack of English. I've spoke to the manager or the owner a number of times to say, guys, you need to stop certain people coming in. Most of the trouble was, if not all the trouble, was driven by the people that they allowed in, and I'm really looking forward to having some door people to be on there to stop them coming in. There was even one incident when the reason they kicked off is because they weren't allowed in. So as soon as he started laying the law down, the customers then kicked off before they even got in there because they were refused entry. I'd say that there is a bit of noise, and it's certainly been a lot less in the last couple of years since he started to obviously get some feedback. I'm aware one of the neighbours complained about the smell from the vapes. It's strawberry, and it's extremely pleasant when I'm sitting in my garden in the summer, to be fair. Much better than the average smell from the Uxbridge Road. As for the pubs around, when they were closed, we still got noise. We got noise from the cricket club on Coney Green, and they have, I'm not sure about Saturday the 18th. I think I must have been working, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was from the cricket club having a function, because they, you know, sometimes they have late night functions there as well. I don't know if you've got any questions. I say, I bought a house next to a pub.
Thank you.
It makes a bit of noise.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, councillors? No. No, I don't have any questions either. Cool. Thank you very much for your time. Can you just turn the microphone off for me? Thank you. Right, so we've got no more speakers. We're going to go to the broader discussion now, which is led by the subcommittee. So, do we have any questions? I do, as always. So there was a mention there that there was a bit of trouble when they were people refused entry. What sort of conflict management training do you have, or does your staff have? Are you looking at that?
Yeah, so that's certainly something that will take in place. But I do focus on the front of the house of staff. They're going to be in the premises. They're not going to be dealing with people being refused on the entry. More of the protection, the SIA company, so the dual supervisors, they're going to be handling that part. And I think they did mention this in their report. That is in the pack as well. Thank you.
Will that be the same when you're refusing the sale of alcohol? Because I would expect that your staff would have the ability to refuse the sale of alcohol to someone if they were intoxicated. Yeah,
so if there is a number of guests in the premises that seem to be over drunk and being overserved, there would come, obviously, training in place would to be notify me as a manager. I would approach the customers and I would, I've got training of refusal and I've got certificates to prove that as well in refusal of sale.
Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Smallwood.
I just wondered how you're going to deal with complaints. Like me, I think you're quite an expressive person. I was just observing when some of the people were saying things that maybe weren't necessarily things that you agreed with. I could see from your facial expressions that you didn't. I'm guessing you didn't agree with them. You weren't smiling, so you were doing the reverse. I just wondered how you're going to deal with it, because actually, you know, residents will. As a local councillor, and Councillor Gardner and Councillor Davies will know, as local councillors we do get legitimate complaints about things that go wrong, and I recognise that sometimes they aren't always out of premises control, but a lot of that and a lot of conflict management is about how you deal with that, and I'm just interested about how you are going to deal with residents who have legitimate concerns when people are making noise at, you know, midnight, because they will. Let's not pretend that we're going to stop people making noise at midnight, because that will not happen. That would just be a porcupine. How you are going to deal with that when people are making legitimate complaints and when mistakes happen. Now, previously mistakes went far too over the line. That's why the premises licence was revoked. But how you're going to take those seriously and make residents feel you're taking them seriously.
So we do. We love our community. We love our residents, and any complaint from the community, we're going to see through it predominantly. We're going to sit down. For example, if there's loud music, we'll find a way, for example, to turn the music down at a certain level of the night. If that's, for example, if they're saying at 12 o'clock the music's too loud, we'll put in place that we can set our limiter to go to level 2 instead of level 3, so it's a bit more, not as much noise being made. And also, if people are being loud, guests become loud sometimes. We'll try and isolate big groups. We'll try and not take big bookings on weekends, stuff like this.
Yes, Councillor Small.
How many patrons have you currently got on your, I'm going to say, banned list? I don't know what maybe the official term is, but how many patrons have you got on your banned list currently? How many people would not be allowed in? Given what's going on in the past.
On the banned list, we don't have anyone banned yet because we're not serving any alcohol, and everyone's quite fine.
But I'm assuming, given some of the previous behaviours by some of the previous patrons, and you having worked there and people having been, like, why not directly, but loosely involved, you're going to know some of the people that caused some of the problems previously. How many of those are currently banned?
So if I do see anyone that looks familiar that's caused any problems, they'll be straight away banned and not refused to be entered into the property.
So just to be clear, there's nobody banned at the moment, but if somebody was to...
There is nobody banned at the moment because I don't know anyone that's been banned. Previously, I wasn't the manager, so I don't know any of the details.
Okay, I have my final question. Back to the application. This is, for me, it's very confusing, So this was my job. I was a publican. So I understand this industry very well. And there's some things in here again. The prevention of public nuisance. Number 7, no noise generated on the premises or equipment shall emanate from the premises nor vibrations transmitted through the structure of the premises which gives a rise to nuisance. How have you soundproofed the outside area? I'm just really struggling with that, and Mr. Craig made the same point. What have you got in place to protect that?
So as the outside area is a smoking shelter, so the smoke-free law, you have to have all sides open. However, there is a barrier between the car park and the terrace, which is soundproof. And also, if you guys want to come down now, I'll put all the music on and we can stand in the car park, and I can guarantee you there is no music going further than the car park. Even with the music limiter, we keep records. You're more than welcome to come. I'll put all the music on and you're not going to hear anything on the street but the cars.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? No? Thank you. So we'll do brief closing remarks. We'll ask everyone if they have any closing remarks that's spoken before. Pramapreet Sidhu, do you have any further remarks? Are you happy? Okay. Khalid wasn't here. Thomas Craig has left. Councillor Bennett, do you have any further comment? Yep. It is brief and closing remarks. No further questions.
Brief and closing remarks. Thank you, Chairman. I will just reiterate what I said earlier. I'm here to represent the residents of Hillingdon West Ward. They have, the venue is tainted in their eyes. There is a long history of issues which I think we've long discussed in this meeting. I don't think that enough has been shared today to say that the risk of those issues carrying on is minimalised or diminished sufficiently. I think parking is still a grey area. Restaurant opening till 1 a.m, the noise in an outside area where noise can easily escape. A lack of sort of history as sort of a licensee or running these types of businesses with a lot of credible experience, such that you would be able to manage this effectively and stop it happening again, etc. So my representation still stands.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Thank you for your time. You may be seated. PC Penny Brown, PC Dave Butler, do you have any closing remarks?
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it brief if I can. Mr. San, just to confirm, you did say that you were not, or can I just confirm whether or not you're employing any previous staff that were obviously employed at the venue prior to your arrival?
So the only previous staff we're keeping is the chef, because of the food. Front of house, there is no previous staff being re-employed.
Are you aware, or would you know if there's any staff here today at this meeting?
Yeah, there is staff, yeah.
Okay, that's obviously one of my concerns, that I recognise a number of members of staff that were formerly employed at the venue, but they're clearly here today either in support or just to obviously find out how the proceedings are going to proceed.
No, I think they're here just for support, to be honest.
Okay, thank you. And just to clarify, will you be living on site?
No, I don't live on site. I live on Hillingdon Road as well.
How, obviously your personal well-being is of concern. We don't expect you to be there 24 hours a day, but how often do you intend to be there?
6 days a week.
Okay, and have you got a deputy who's here today?
I don't, but I'm looking forward to hire a deputy manager.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. That concludes my...
Thank you. Penny, do you have anything?
Seems we've opened that line of questioning. Just to follow up slightly more with it as well, you say 8 members of staff are currently living above the pipe. Is that right or not?
8 members, yes.
And are you intending to keep them on? Because I may have misunderstood. I thought you were getting rid of anyone that's there at the moment.
So as soon as we get the license, the front of house team is going to be completely remapped. So new members of the front of house. Only members that are going to be staying is the kitchen and the back of house, and they've got no problem with the front of house.
So the people that are currently living there and who are currently working there, are they going to be having to vacate, or are they going to continue to be there? Sorry.
So the current people that live there are the chefs, which are the 3 chefs, and 2 of the waiters. So the waiters, they're going abroad, they're not staying here anymore.
Okay. You said there was 8 people, that was only 5.
The rest don't live upstairs, it's only 5 rooms upstairs.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, just for the committee. Thank you very much for your time, guys. You may take a seat. ASB, do we have any further questions? Daniel Ferreira licensing? No? So the applicant and licence holders, do you have any closing remarks and brief remarks, please?
They will be very brief. I won't repeat. I adopt the opening that I made. The operation is entirely separate. It is a completely new business from the former business, albeit not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, to mix metaphors. Obviously, the food and the character of the food and the style of the food is popular, and that is being kept. But the management, and the very poor management, has gone. I do rely, and I really invite you and your colleagues to make a judgment on the character of the applicants. It comes down all to Mr. Ahmed as the business owner and Mr. Hassan as the proposed DPS. And in my submission, they are clearly both very capable, commercial and honest individuals, and that's a matter for your judgment, having heard their answers to a whole range of questions. My criticism and challenge, really, just as we have been challenged by the responsible authorities, prove that you're not tainted, as Councillor Bennett just put it, like the old business, prove that you are not going to follow that course. And I would turn that question around. I would say, here's the application. It really is down to those making representation to prove that we are. And I have to say, in my submission, there's no evidence at all from any quarter of anything in the proposed operation or the answers that these gentlemen have given that shows that they are going to carry on repeating any of the mistakes. And I went through that in quite a lot of detail in the opening, taking through the music and the food and the control and the entry and all of those different things, underage and so forth. As P.C. Brown put it, she said at one point, there's some similarities to what has gone on before. Obviously, as I said, there are similarities because we're not throwing away the things that are popular to the local community. Just picking up a point that you, sir, raised in relation to sound attenuation. Mr. Hassan invited you to come down and guaranteed, as he said, that you wouldn't hear any noise if the music is being played through the televisions on the premises. I would just refer the committee to the pictures of the premises. You can see that's the area, the kind of outdoors area outside the building, as it were. You've effectively got a covered roof sitting on top of it. You've then got this area around, which you can see rather more clearly in that. And again, I'm not giving evidence, but in my submission, those who've had involvement in noise cases and noisy premises cases, as I'm sure your committee have, will know the sound-absorbing qualities of that kind of material. You've seen in the pack the data from the people who supplied the noise limiter and the tests that they carried out to show that when it was being played at a reasonable level within the premises, there was no difference at all on either of the two adjoining roads. And in that context, I would refer you to the the map that is in the premises, I'm not quite sure why the premises is right on the edge as opposed to in the centre. But what you can see is, contrary to some suggestions that Mr. Craig made, that it's in a very residential area. I'll say it's not residential, but it's right on the border of a very busy dual carriageway and also a lesser road there, where one can assume that the level of background noise is going to be quite high. And in fact, in the pack, there's a series of, I think, 13 photographs of noise limiters with the sound readings from that road. So you're going to get a high level of background noise against which any music within the premises will be judged. This is a significant property. It's a substantial property. It's obviously been a licensed premises for many years. Again, I'm not an expert on properties, but my guess is that it would have been built maybe in the 30s. It could even have been in the 50s, who knows. But it's been there for many decades, obviously operating as licensed premises. Unless one knocks it down, one hopes that it's going to carry on in that use. And it's providing, and this is very important and not to be forgotten, an important facility for local people. Local people need somewhere that they can go to eat, to drink, to socialise, rather than simply be locked within their own properties. Being on the immediately adjoining a busy dual carriageway where it is, I would suggest that this is a very suitable property in that regard. And again, I'm looking at your policy statement where the authority recognises it exercises a range of responsibilities, including helping to develop a thriving food, drink and entertainment economy. That is an important element or function. Now, obviously, that has to be balanced against the needs of residents. It mustn't impact adversely or on the licensing objectives, and that's a judgment for you to make. I think the last thing I would say is simply this. Again, I invite you to make a judgment of Mr. Ahmed as an accountant with, I think he says in his statement, 600 accountancy clients. He's seen this as an investment opportunity. You've heard that he intends to take a lease of it, 7 years, £72,000 a year. My calculation, that's well in the region of £500,000, just as a straight-off contractual commitment. Over and above that, there's going to be all the staffing costs and so forth. So there's a massive commitment on his part. And as clearly somebody who gives the impression of being a successful and sensible and very commercial businessman, he would have to be absolutely crazy to take on licensed premises with a whole range of conditions if he believed that the premises were going to be in breach of those conditions, where his commitment, his financial commitment, would be destroyed and he would be facing a significant loss. So he has absolutely every incentive to abide by the conditions, not only that are in the operating statement, but also by those which the environmental health officer has asked for and which he has readily acceded to. So, Chair, on that basis, I certainly invite you to consider this application very carefully and to grant it, but subject to the conditions and subject to the hours sought. They are not 2, 3, whatever in the morning. It is closing generally, I think, or ceasing licence activities 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock just on the Thursday, Friday and Saturday, with half an hour closing up time after that to disperse people from the premises. I would say in all the circumstances, given the commitment that's being made, that is not an unreasonable proposal. Just also, I know that there wasn't a reference specifically to CCTV, but you will find in your bundle of papers there is a plan rather, with CCTV on which you can count some 19 CCTV cameras on the premises, and there's a condition that specifically covers that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank
Sorry
you.
if it's too long for you.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. Thank you. Right, just before I do that, actually, I just want to say thank you to the officers. One, Steve, for doing the hard work with the last minute addendum that come in, and also the officers are taking their time. The officers are taking their time after. And I believe that is it from us. The subcommittee will now adjourn and move for private deliberation on the application prior to announcing the decision. A decision will be made in writing to you guys 5 days after this meeting, or once we've made our decision, alternatively. Okay, thank you to everyone for being here today. I appreciate it's been a long meeting. And thank you to everyone watching on YouTube. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.